Recording in progress. Here we go. Today's question that we're going to cover is, what is an angel? I don't remember who asked this question, but I think it's a good question. It's an interesting question. So for today, I'm going to have some Bible passages that are a little long, so I didn't print them up on the screen. So if you're one that likes to follow along, can grab a Bible. And the other thing that you might want is a paper and pencil, or even crayons if you've got those in your house. So I'm going to have you do a little bit of drawing for me today. And I will do it with you so that it's not just you by yourself. Talking about what is an angel. So starting with our assumptions, as we normally do, I figured what we should do with the question, what is an angel, is think about what our assumptions are when we hear that word angel. And so what I want to do to start us off today is have everybody think about what an angel looks like to them and draw us a picture. And if you're not comfortable showing us your picture, that's okay. But I still want you to draw a picture of what you think an angel looks like.
Oh, I can't do that.
You'll get to see what an artist I am not.
Luckily, there are no art awards at this show.
Good. Okay.
Does it have to be life size?
No.
Katie, you're really going into detail. I did something very simple.
All right, so you're ready to show us your picture?
Sure.
Here's what I drew. Oh, okay.
I don't know how you, oh, there.
Nope.
Oh, interesting, Jim. So your angel just kind of looks like a person.
It's a selfie.
Oh, okay.
That's what I should have done. Because I think angels look like people, and so I didn't draw anything.
Okay.
They look like people and dogs.
People and dogs.
I could have drawn a dog.
With wings. I think
Yeah.
they have to have wings.
in our culture, we see depictions of angels a lot. We have the little cherub angels, kind of like our little Valentine's Day cherubs type of thing with the little wings. We have the idea of an angel as a warrior in art sometimes, and sculpture, kind of a majestic herald of good or bad news depending on who you are. I put on here, I always thought that the movie Angels in the Outfield was a really interesting use of angel, the angel trope.
Yeah.
The angels are out there lifting up the baseball player so he can reach the ball, helping him out there. But then we also have, the concept that angels are people. Angels sometimes are maybe dead people. Donald Duck appears as an angel himself in cartoons where he dies temporarily and goes to heaven. Sometimes he dies temporarily and goes to hell and is dressed up like a little. What's that, Jim?
I got an emergency phone call. I have to leave. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, that's all right. We'll catch up later. Thanks for coming. Hope everything's all right.
Yeah, so do I. Oh, you were here home?
Yeah,
We gotta go get late.
yeah, Scott said you're going?
Yeah, or you can be. I'm on.
All right. So Donald Duck as the angel, or sometimes Donald Duck's got the little angel on his shoulder trying to tell him, what to do or what not to do. And then the little devil is usually on the other shoulder trying to tell him what to do or not to do. So kind of different uses of the angel image for even within the same cartoon universe. But then we've also got some interesting, I wanted to think for a minute about some of the ways that angels are used in other types of art in our culture, with song lyrics. So I just picked out a couple of random ones. So Sarah McLachlan has that song that's really popular because it's on TV and is trying to make you cry over the dogs that are starving so that you'll give them your money to help the dogs that need help. And she talks about the comfort of angels kind of having that protector type of role in that song. Similarly, sort of, Jimi Hendrix sang about an angel. He says, "Angel came down from heaven yesterday. She stayed with me just long enough to rescue me." And it's interesting because there's there's that kind of same idea about rescuing, comforting, protecting, but of course in some songs there's a little bit of that kind of sexual tension implication there, so that's a little fuzzy. In the 50s, they like to sing about angels a lot in the doo-wop groups. The Penguins sang Earth Angel, will you be mine? And then in the 80s, the Jay Giles Band went all the way out and said, "My memory has just been sold. My angel is the centerfold." The idea there being, this girl from his school was pure, innocent, wore soft and fuzzy sweaters, and so she was an angel. Attractive women who are innocent are called angels in a lot of these songs. And so this image is used in a lot of different ways if you think about it. We have the protector, we have the supernatural being, we have the way of describing a particular type of woman in contrast to loose women. Children are angels, dogs are angels, people who have passed away are angels who watch over us. There are lots of different ways that we use angel in our culture and don't even really think about, I think, the differences or the implications of all those different uses as they kind of combine together.
But you never hear anyone talk about a male angel. And
Nope.
yet the angels in the Bible.
Yep. No, men are not angels. Children, little boys can be angels, maybe. But
right.
But yeah, men are not angels unless it's grandpa has passed away, but he's still here with us. Right. He's an angel watching out for me, looking over my shoulder kind of thing. So yes. only men who are no longer with us can be angels. But the Bible actually is even more wild when we think about how the Bible describes angels. So I want to share with you two descriptions. And my thought was we could, next to our pictures of our angels that we got from our minds, I want to read these to you, and I want you to draw what you visualize as I read these to you. There are going to be two passages that I'm going to read. So the first one is Isaiah chapter 6, verses 1-4. Flaming creatures with 6 wings each were flying over him. They covered their faces with 2 of their wings and their bodies with 2 more. They used the other 2 wings for flying, and as they shouted, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord all-powerful. The earth is filled with your glory." As they shouted, the doorposts of the temple shook, and the temple was filled with smoke. So what does that look like?
It's all wings.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I just have a bunch of wings.
So what do you have, Karen? You want to show us?
Oh, I don't know that you can see it.
Oh yeah, we can see. Hold it up.
Can you?
Move
But
it.
I was thinking about more like a gargoyle face, like ugly. Those would be scary.
Yes.
Yeah. All those wings.
Especially with, didn't it say flame?
Flaming creatures. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I've got next Ezekiel chapter 1. These are just parts of verses 4-11. This was their appearance of these creatures that he encounters. They were of human form. Each had 4 faces, and each of them had 4 wings. Their legs were straight, and the soles of their feet were like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like burnished bronze. Under their wings, on their 4 sides, they had human hands. And the 4 had their faces and their wings thus. The wings touched one another. Each of them moved straight ahead without turning as they moved. As for the appearance of their faces, the 4 had the face of a human, the face of a lion on the right side, the face of an ox on the left side, and the face of an eagle. Such were their faces. The living creatures darted to and fro like a flash of lightning.
Now that's frightening.
I'm not even going to try to draw that.
No. You need a 3D figure for that. Wow.
4 faces, one of a human, one of a lion, one of an ox, one of an eagle.
Yeah, I couldn't get there. Oh, goodness
So
sakes.
each one of them had that? Because
That's
then
what
it says
this says. Yeah, that's what
the
this
living
says.
creatures darted to and fro. So, wow.
So artists have tried to depict this several times throughout the century. So I picked out a couple of these to show you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah.
I think the one guy there, he got the feet wrong because it was supposed to be like a calf's foot. So that's more like a hoof, right? Not the foot of a
Right.
lion or a human.
Right.
But I liked this meme Why is everyone afraid? I specifically requested that you be not afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then look at that thing. Oh my gosh.
This one
Ugh.
from the meme is a reference later in Ezekiel. It talks about how these creatures were also covered in eyes. Didn't mention that in chapter 1, but later mentions that they're
Yeah.
also covered in eyes. So pretty
Mm.
wild.
Yeah, that's scary. It's all get out. Woo.
So we don't even, we can't even really come to an agreement about what angels look like, let alone what they are. So what do we do with all of this? Well, I think the first thing we need to do is talk about earthly angels and heavenly angels. So the word angel comes from the Greek word angelos, which means messenger. So an angelos is any kind of person that has a message to share. When I am, working in the bedroom and I want Bob to come back and talk to me about something, I send one of my kids out and they are my angelos with the message, please come back to the bedroom. When a Greek emperor or general wanted to send a message to one of their underlings to let them know what they need to do next, they would send an official royal angelos to take care of that. But it's clear in the Bible that there are places where this word is used and it's not intended to refer simply to some kind of human messenger. And so what do we do with this? In the Hebrew, this word is malak, and malak doesn't completely mean messenger, but it's close enough that when the Greeks translated the Hebrew into Greek for the Septuagint, which we talked about before, that Greek translation from the Hebrew for the purpose of allowing Jews who lived outside of Judea, who no longer spoke Hebrew, to access the Bible, they translated this word malak as angelos into the Greek, which means messenger. And so there's just this kind of direct translation. However, after the Christians came around and started to work with this stuff, and then the Bible was eventually translated into Latin, which is called the Vulgate. In the Latin, the man who did the translation, whose name was Jerome, decided to use 2 different Latin words, or actually 3 different Latin words, depending on whether he thought that the person referenced in the story was a regular earthly messenger, in which case he would use the word nuntius, which means messenger or courier, or legatus, which means envoy or ambassador. So if he thought it was a human person, he would use one of those words, versus if he thought it was some kind of heavenly or supernatural being, in which case he would use angelus. And so he made this choice to differentiate. Every time the word angelos or malak was used, he would decide which one of these words he wanted to use. And a lot of times that differentiation has followed us into our modern translations of the Bible, so that there are places where we have that word angelos, but the word is not translated as messenger or remains as angel. It follows more the messenger, courier, envoy, ambassador type of translation. And so we kind of have to ask ourselves, was Jerome's interpretation correct? Was it appropriate for him to divide these 2 concepts into 2 different camps of human messenger versus divine messenger, or not? And that's not a question that we can really answer, but that's something I think we need to keep in mind as we're thinking about this question: what is an angel? So questions about the translation and the origin words. Okay. So now we're going to kind of walk through the Bible and look at some different sections and what how angels are used in these different sections of the Bible. So in the Torah, which is the first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, in the Torah, angels are used as a link between humans and God. But they also are there to kind of maintain the distance between God and humans. And so I want to look at 2 passages where we see this happening. The first one is Genesis chapter 6, verses 6 through 13. And I will read this to you if you want to follow along in your own Bible. If that helps you, you can do that. Otherwise, you can just listen to me read the story. And this is the story of the conflict between Sarai and Hagar after Abram kind of decides to take matters into his own hands and impregnate Hagar with his child. Abram said, "All right, she's your slave," Sarai, "and you can do whatever you want with her." But Sarai began treating Hagar so harshly that Hagar finally ran away. Hagar stopped to rest at a spring in the desert on the road to Shur. While she was there, the angel of the Lord came to her and asked, "Hagar, where have you come from and where are you going?" She answered, "I'm running away from Sarai, my owner." The angel said, "Go back to Sarai and be her slave. I will give you a son who will be called Ishmael, because I have heard your cry for help. And later I will give you so many descendants that no one will be able to count them all. But your son will live far from his relatives. He will be like a wild donkey, fighting everyone and everyone fighting him." Hagar thought, "Have I really seen God and lived to tell about it?" So from then on, she called him the God who sees me. So what can you discern from this passage about the appearance of the angel, the nature of the angel, the purpose of the angel?
Well, the purpose would be for the angel to get her to go back. And she wasn't afraid, so maybe it was an angel and that looked like a human. But then she knew it was God, or she thought it was God.
Right. So if some random person that you met on the road said, "Hey, who are you? What are you doing here?" And you said, "I'm running away from slavery." And they said, "Well, go back because I'm going to give you a son and all these things are going to happen." And it was just like a random person. You wouldn't say,
Right.
"I have seen God." So there had to be something, right, to
Right,
show that this
right.
thing was not just some random stranger that they met on the road, to give her that indication that she was to believe this. But it's not so scary that she's, freaking out. There's no "be not afraid," like with
Right.
a lot of other
Yeah.
people. So, there has to be something going on there, but not something too scary or too different. But it's interesting, you pointed out, the story tells us that it's an angel who comes to see her, but she says, "Have I really seen God and lived to tell about it?" So what are we to make of that? Are we to assume that she doesn't quite understand? Are we to assume that an angel is maybe God in some kind of human form? That we have to kind of wrestle with that and think about what we think that means.
Yeah. What does that mean?
I think
don't
she
know.
must have thought it was God, because when you see something, sometimes you can say, wow, did that really happen? But not really mean did it happen, because it did happen. So she must have thought for some reason it was God. Well, maybe because of the prediction, although that doesn't necessarily mean it either.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on there that, there aren't any answers. Genesis is very famous for that they kind of just tell you the story. Here's what happened. And you have so many questions. Like, what does that mean? How does that fit together? Did this, what did that look like? Why did they make that assumption about the thing? And why did they say that? That doesn't make any sense if you don't give me the details about, what's going on in the background or what it looks like or anything like that. There aren't enough details to tell you what to think about this stuff. And so all these questions are swirling here.
But if you think about seeing the face of God in the people that you meet every day, I'm not saying they're all angels. I'm just saying they're all representative of God. This you see God's face. But I don't know if that's what she means or not,
Mm-hmm. Maybe she does.
I mean, if you do truly love everybody, which is so hard, you don't always see God, but I don't know. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Well, let's go on to the next passage. So this is Genesis chapter 19. This is the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. And typically when we read this story, we're all interested in what's going on with these men who want to have sex with these other men and talking about the homosexuality aspect. I want to put that aside, whether it's about homosexuality or it's about hospitality or any of that, put that aside. And I want to focus specifically on the angels and what they do and what they say and what we can figure out about who they are from this story. So this is Genesis chapter 19. That evening, the two angels arrived in Sodom while Lot was sitting near the city gate. When Lot saw them, he got up, bowed down low, and said, "Gentlemen, I am your servant. Please come to my home. You can wash your feet, spend the night, and be on your way in the morning." They told him, "No, we'll spend the night in the city square." But Lot kept insisting until they finally agreed and went home with him. He baked some bread, cooked a meal, and they ate. Before Lot and his guests could go to bed, every man in Sodom, young and old, came and stood outside his house and started shouting, "Where are your visitors? Send them out so that we can have sex with them." Lot went outside and shut the door behind him. Then he said, "Friends, please don't do such a terrible thing. I have 2 daughters who have never been married. I'll bring them out and you can do what you want with them, but please don't harm these men. They are guests in my home."
Wow.
"Don't get in our way," the crowd answered. "You're an outsider. What right do you have to order us around? We'll do worse things to you than we're going to do to them." The crowd kept arguing with Lot. Finally, they rushed toward the door to break it down. But the 2 angels in the house reached out and pulled Lot safely inside. Then they struck everyone in the crowd blind, and none of them could even find the door. The 2 angels said to Lot, "The Lord has heard many terrible things about the people of Sodom and has sent us here to destroy the city. Take your family and leave. Take every relative you have in the city, as well as the men your daughters are going to marry." Lot went to the men who were engaged to his daughters and said, "Hurry and get out of here. The Lord is going to destroy this city." But they thought he was joking and they laughed at him. Early the next morning, the 2 angels tried to make Lot hurry and leave. They said, "Take your wife and your 2 daughters and get out of here as fast as you can. If you don't, every one of you will be killed when the Lord destroys the city." At first, Lot just stood there, but the Lord wanted to save him. So the angels took Lot and his wife and his 2 daughters by the hand and led them out of the city. When they were outside, one of the angels said, "Run for your lives. Don't even look back. And don't stop in the valley. Run to the hills where you will be safe." Lot answered, "You have done us a great favor, sir. You have saved our lives, but please don't make us go to the hills. That's too far away. The city will be destroyed before we can get there, and we will be killed when it happens." There's a town near here. It's only a small place, but my family and I will be safe if you let us go there. All right, go there, he answered. I won't destroy that town. Hurry, run. I can't do anything until you are safely there.
You know, that always bothers me, that whole story. I mean, how God thought he was a good man for giving up his daughters instead of these strangers that came walking into his house. You know, that doesn't sound like a good man to me. And so what, out of all the town, this man who is willing to give up his daughters is the only good person in town? I mean, the story just doesn't make sense.
It's not, I don't think it doesn't seem complete to me, because how did he know that they were angels and he should, quote, save them, although they ended up saving him? I feel like there's something missing, that, yes, not that he should have ever given up his daughters, but there's something missing that he thought, to me, that he thought they were so important. And how did he know?
Yeah. So would, when we talk about this passage and we're wondering about, what it says about homosexuality, we often come to the conclusion that it's not about homosexuality, it's about hospitality, and how, they wanted to stay in the city square, but Lot knew that it wasn't safe for them there. And so he brought them to his home. And at least in terms of the men of Sodom, it doesn't seem like they know that these guys are anything special. I mean, I don't know, I don't know these guys,
Right.
obviously, but I don't think I would be gutsy enough to demand that kind of access to an angel or do something,
Right.
try to do something like that to an angel if I knew that they were an angel. But if I just thought that they were regular men, then, then I might not care quite as much. So, they don't have, it doesn't seem like they have any kind of special physical indicator that they are anything more than just regular people. And it really isn't until they perform a miracle that it shows that they're anything more than just strangers traveling through, when they pull Lot back into the house and then the whole crowd is suddenly blind and can't find the door. And that's when we finally know within the story, other than the fact that they're called angels from the beginning, that these guys are more than
Right.
just guys traveling through the city.
Oh, I always missed that. I thought they were separate, That makes
And
sense now.
Didn't one of them say God is going to destroy the city? And then later he said, leave before I destroy it. So
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So is this person God in disguise?
Yeah.
Is this person a messenger of God?
Right.
We don't know.
That's interesting.
And then in that, I was gonna cut it shorter so that I didn't have to, take so much time on this, but I thought that ending part of the story was important too, because there's this negotiation. So the angel speaks with, first person pronouns, talking about, I am going to do these things, having just said that God was going to do these things. So is this person God? And then also seems to have the power to negotiate God's terms. Lot says, oh, please don't make us go to the hills. Can we just go to this little town and don't destroy that town? Well, okay, fine. I won't destroy that town. So this angel has some kind of power to make that kind of change to God's plan for destroying the entire valley.
So that, to me, that means that maybe it is God.
Maybe
because
so.
God's plans usually aren't changed.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
It is.
So within the Torah, like I said before, there's definitely this sense that an angel is a link between God and humanity but also maybe to kind of keep that distance that is necessary to maintain, the holiness of God, the otherness of God. um, the messenger, the angel, brings the divine message and is given permission by God to share it with humans. But then sometimes speaks directly for God. So it's not the same thing as if I, like phone chain. Marge calls me and says, oh, church is canceled for tomorrow. There's a big snowstorm. Can you please call Karen and let her know? Sure, I'll call her and let her know. And then I call Karen and I say, oh, Karen, Marge says the church is canceled for tomorrow. She just wanted to make sure that you knew. And then Karen asks me, well, why is church closed? I don't have any snowstorm outside of my house. Maybe you do up there in Bella Vista, but we're fine here. So we could probably still have church. I don't have the authority to say, oh, okay, you're right. Why don't we just still have church? I would have to go back to Marge and say, hey, this is information that I received. But that doesn't seem to happen. These angels are able to speak for God, negotiate for God. So how do what does that even look like? So as I was thinking about this, I had never thought of something like this before. And I'm not saying that it's right, but another possibility is like in movies where people get possessed by demons sometimes, or sometimes they are like Whoopi Goldberg in Ghost, where another being kind of enters their body and uses their body to negotiate in the world and to walk around and to speak and to interact with the physical world. That could you could legitimately interpret some of this stuff in that way, that these are just regular human beings and God is like possessing them so that God can speak to people in their language using a tongue that God doesn't have as a spirit, and so then speak the message of God so that it looks like me, it sounds like me, but the words that are coming out of my mouth are the words of God, or like in the movies, the words of the demon, or the words of your dead grandfather who wants to give you a message about the treasure that he buried in the backyard or something. So I just thought of that. I thought that was super interesting, because I never really thought about that before. And like I said, I'm not saying that that's what it is, but it's a legitimate possibility to consider as far as what the concept here is and what this looks like, what it's about. At least
I agree.
Cora.
I agree. That fits my idea of how it works. That ordinary people become a conduit for God in a certain circumstance. You hear about these things. I always think about this woman I worked with, and she was in a really terrible car accident on Interstate 5 coming into work one day. And she was just semi-conscious, and a man appeared. She never did see another car or anything, but this man was at the side of her car and held her hand until the emergency people got there, talked to her, did all those things, and then disappeared. She never saw him again. And I think that God uses people like that. I mean, I know I've been in circumstances where I felt like God's given me the words to say to somebody, or the insight to know what they needed at that time, that it wouldn't have just come to me if God hadn't been using me as his messenger.
Yeah. So does that make you an angel in that moment, and in a certain particular type of sense? And then we could go on for days with different implications of that there's a difference, I think, between like what you're describing as kind of feeling that inspiration versus like demon possession kind of stuff, where I'm not in control of my own body and in control of my own words, and in those movies where they kind of come out of it and they don't even know what happened because their bodies and brains have
Yeah.
been taken over and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Those are two very different things. And so
They
kind of
are.
thinking about all these different possibilities and whether that would make sense for who God to be and how God to work. And it's all very interesting, and there are no answers really to this. And then
Yeah.
as we move through time here, we're going to see that it gets even more complicated.
Yeah.
So that's Torah. So that's kind of the earliest Bible, earliest sense of this concept of angel. But then as we move through time and we get into the period of the exile into Babylon, and we've talked, much more than most groups do about this period with our Daniel class and that kind of thing. But in this period, this is when we start to get more of the kind of supernatural concept of the angel. Oh, that's weird. Okay. So angels in kind of the pre-exilic period. I want to go back. I already read this to you once, but I want to just read to you quickly again. Isaiah chapter 6. In the year that King Uzziah died, I had a vision of the Lord. He was on his throne high above, and his robe filled the temple. Flaming creatures with 6 wings each were flying over him. They covered their faces with 2 of their wings and their bodies with 2 more. They used the other 2 wings for flying as they shouted, "Holy, holy, holy, Lord all-powerful. The earth is filled with your glory." As they shouted, the doorposts of the temple shook, and the temple was filled with smoke. Now, I find this one interesting because, it has all the wings and everything that we associate with angels. But the word angel does not appear in this description. It's flaming creatures. And so are these angels? What does that mean?
What does that go on to say after just that they appeared?
They appeared, and then there's the thing about he is a creature of unclean lips, and he's seen the Lord, and he's going to die. And then they bring the coal to him, and he can touch his lips with it to purify him. And then the vision continues from there. But it doesn't talk about how they're angels. It just describes them as flaming creatures. So we kind of associate these supernatural creatures with angels. Daniel chapter 10 has another experience of angels that I want to read to you. And Daniel, comes from that era in the post-exilic period when there was a lot of political and military unrest in the region. The Egyptians and the Greeks were fighting with each other and were constantly tramping through Palestine to, get at each other. And we had the situation with Antiochus Epiphanes, or Antiochus IV, who was really awful to the Jews and persecuted them and oppressed them and destroyed their religious practices just out of spite and all kinds of things like that. And so this is a period when apocalyptic literature was very popular. And so these kinds of visions of scary things and spiritual warfare were kind of part of the cultural part of the media of the time. So this is from Daniel chapter 10. On the 24th day of the first month, I was standing on the banks of the great Tigris River when I looked up and saw someone dressed in linen and wearing a solid gold belt. His body was like a precious stone, his face like lightning, his eyes like flaming fires, his arms and legs like polished bronze, and his voice like the roar of a crowd. Although the people who were with me did not see the vision, they became so frightened that they scattered and hid. Only I saw this great vision. I became weak and pale, and at the sound of his voice, I fell face down in a deep sleep. He raised me to my hands and knees and then said, "Daniel, your God thinks highly of you and has sent me So stand up and pay close attention. I stood trembling while the angel said, Daniel, don't be afraid. God has listened to your prayers since the first day you humbly asked for understanding, and he has sent me here. But the guardian angel of Persia opposed me for 21 days. Then Michael, who was one of the strongest guardian angels, came to rescue me from the kings of Persia. Now I have come to here to give you another vision about what will happen to your people in the future. While this angel was speaking to me, I stared at the ground speechless. Then he appeared in human form and touched my lips. I said, Sir, this vision has brought me great pain and has drained my strength. I am merely your servant. How can I possibly speak with someone so powerful when I am almost too weak to get my breath? The angel touched me a second time and said, Don't be frightened. God thinks highly of you, and he intends this for your good, so be brave and strong. At this, I regained my strength and replied, Please speak. You have already made me feel much better. Then the angel said, Now do you understand why I have come? Soon I must leave to fight against the guardian angel of Persia. Then, after I have defeated him, the guardian angel of Greece will attack me. I will tell you what is written in the book of truth, but first you must realize that no one except Michael, the guardian angel of Israel, is on my side. So, all kinds of crazy going on in this story. Here we have, a vision of something that's clearly a supernatural being, but it's not as defined as the previous ones. He doesn't have odd faces and odd body parts. His body parts are like something. His arms are like flaming swords or whatever. So are we to just imagine a kind of human-like creature, but it glowing and looking very strong and powerful, and maybe different colors than we're used to seeing on flesh, things like that. Not sure how we're supposed to deal with that, but I thought it was really interesting, this part that says that he appeared. Then he appeared in human form and touched my lips.
Right.
So
Yeah.
he kind of can change his form or change how people perceive him, which is really interesting. And then this other stuff about guardian angels of Persia, guardian angels of Greece, this warfare among all the guardian angels. What is all this about, and how does that fit into the concept of angel? And so I wanted to point out a couple of things. First, that it's in this post-exilic period that the concept of strict monotheism is finally fully established. Throughout the earlier parts of the Bible, you find interesting references that are kind of hard to explain in terms of the idea that there's only one God. There are places where God speaks as if God is speaking to a group of people. Let us make humankind in our image. What does that mean? Who is God talking to there? In Job, for example, there is kind of the sense that there is like a divine council, and God is hanging around with the other gods or sub-gods or something, and then Satan comes to this gathering of gods who are just hanging out, drinking beers and talking to each other, or whatever it is you do in a divine council to goad God about Job and cause problems on earth. So what does that mean? What is that about? And it seems to many scholars that as monotheism becomes established, at the same time Zoroastrianism starts to influence Judaism and their concept of God and their concept of kind of the supernatural world. And in Zoroastrianism, there are lots and lots of different evil and good spirits. And so this sense of, the world as a battleground between the forces of good and the forces of evil, between the people or the beings of light and the beings of darkness. And so that concept starts to influence Judaism. And so these, this spiritual warfare, the supernatural battle among different types of supernatural beings starts to develop in their thinking and their theology and their writing. And so that's kind of what apocalyptic literature is about. It's about describing events that are taking place in the present, but interpreting them from that theological perspective, from that belief in something that is larger than what we can see physically here, for the purpose of helping to clarify why these things are happening. It's not, humans don't want to just be suffering for nothing. They want to understand their suffering to mean something. And so if your people are being persecuted and murdered, and your belongings are being taken away, and your fields are being trampled constantly by armies that come through, and your temple is desecrated by this petulant ruler, you want to understand that to mean something more than just that's how life is. And so these beliefs about angels battling one another and demons trying to undermine the will of God and all those kinds of things start to develop, and you start to tell stories about those things to help people to make sense of what's happening to them. And so that's kind of where a lot of this idea about angels as supernatural beings developed. So what questions or comments do you have on any of that?
I just had a thought when you were reading the part about Daniel and about the people changing form.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered when we were talking about the resurrection, and we were talking about people being transformed and hanging out with Jesus. And that kind of fits, that they would be transformed, and then they could transform again into something else, something more relatable to people, like another human being.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. And then only one God. I mean, we've believed in only one God forever.
Well, we're not sure, they're with that divine counsel stuff and the let us create them in our image. We're not sure what that means completely. There's a sense that monotheism developed over time within Judaism. But we're not sure, what all of that looked like, because there's only these tiny little pieces of evidence left, because monotheism became so strongly entrenched in Judaism at the same time that all the books were, coming together into what we understand today to be the Hebrew scripture.
I always thought when God said that he meant he and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, the three in one, when he said, let us.
You could interpret it that way.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. I mean, so what about the battle between good and evil? And people think that the battle's going on all the time between the angels and...
Yeah, there are Christians today who believe that that's the reality, that all around us all the time are angels and demons, and they're fighting, and the things that happen in our lives are because we're not holding our guardian angel close enough to us, our hearts, and all those types of things.
One time my grandkids were in a car accident. A person T-boned them when they were driving to school or something. Their mother was driving them. And my granddaughter was, like about 5 or 6. And I said something about, because they weren't hurt. And I said, well, your guardian angel was sure looking out for you today. And Taylor said, well, she could have done a better job.
That's cute.
Agreed.
But I don't know if, well, to believe in angels, do you have to believe in demons?
I don't think so. It depends on what you think an angel is and isn't, and how it functions. And
but if you don't believe, if you can believe in God and not believe in the devil, so you can believe in angels and not believe in demons.
yeah.
Right. And we still haven't settled on what an angel is.
No, we haven't.
Okay.
And it's only going to get worse.
Okay.
You ready? So let's talk about angels in the
Go
New
for it.
Testament. So the first time we see angels in the New Testament are in Luke chapter 1. There are in Matthew, it's interesting. Matthew does not, and we'll talk more about this actually next time when we talk about the 2 different nativity stories. But in Matthew, there are no angels. In Matthew, all the information comes through dreams, specifically the dreams that Joseph has. But in Luke, we have angels making appearances. So in Luke chapter 1, this is actually not the first time an angel appears in Luke, because in Luke we have the story of the birth of John the Baptist. And so the angel appears first actually to Zechariah to tell him that he's going to have a son. But then again, the angel appears to Mary, and this is the one that I picked out. Luke chapter 1, verse 26. 1 month later, God sent the angel Gabriel to the town of Nazareth in Galilee with a message for a virgin named Mary. She was engaged to Joseph from the family of King David. The angel greeted Mary and said, "You are truly blessed. The Lord is with you." Mary was confused by the angel's words and wondered what they meant. Then the angel told Mary, "Don't be afraid." That don't be afraid thing. Don't be afraid. I'm just a weird winged, eye covered lion, eagle, ox creature. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe not.
So we have that, don't be afraid, which probably implies that she was afraid to some degree, which means he's probably not just like a random guy, although maybe he could be if you're a young woman and some strange man starts talking to you. You might be a little freaked out by that. I would have been if I was like 14 years old and some strange man started talking to me. So, there's not really a whole lot here to tell us, what this angel is, other than the fact that God sent the angel to Mary with the message. And the content of the message is, "You are truly blessed. The Lord is with you. Don't be afraid. I have this message for you." So what else? Where else do we see angels? Well, let's fast forward to the end of the story, Matthew chapter 28. After the Sabbath, as the first day of the week was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord, descending from heaven, came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. For fear of him, the guards shook and became like dead men. But the angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid. I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he has been raised, as he said." So here we have a little bit more description. We've got this appearance like lightning, clothing white as snow, which of course you don't get at this time because it's impossible to bleach stuff and it gets dirty really easily. Big earthquake, supernatural power to roll back the stone and sit on it, freaking out the guards. But now all that happens. Don't be afraid. It's fine. This is all fine. All these things that you've just seen happen are fine. But this announcement, again, there's a message. He is not here, for he has been raised, as he said. And then one more from Revelation chapter 12. And war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought back, but they were defeated, and there was no longer any place for them in heaven. So interesting. The dragon and his angels did have a place in heaven? Question mark. But again, this kind of battle, this spiritual warfare, this apocalyptic image of what what human events mean in a cosmic sense. So what do we think?
You know, the people back in those days were so suggestible, I guess is the word I'd look for. They found it very easy to make up things to explain what they didn't understand. And
But when
said-
they, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go
No,
ahead.
no, I thought, I was just going to say, but when the angels appeared or came in all these instances, they always had a message and it was always from God. So I guess that would certainly make them believe.
But how do you know?
Well, with Mary, because she was pregnant and she went through with having the baby and raising him and until basically he was turned over to God.
But how do you know, how do you know that a message is from God and not from Satan or?
Well, because what they said then did happen is what I meant. I mean, if they said, of course, these are the only instances we know, but what each of them told the different people, it happened. So it would have had to have been from God.
Yeah, unless it, unless you believe that Satan has the power to make supernatural things happen. I mean, it could be that, playing devil's advocate here, haha. It could be that, Satan went to Mary and said, I'm going to impregnate you and it's going to be this wonderful thing. And I'm telling you a message from God. But really it was, some kind of evil way to ruin her life. I mean, it doesn't, when you're going through it, I think we have to think about the implications of some of this stuff. I mean, God is coming and saying, oh, by the way, child, you're going to carry a baby. Everybody knows that you're not married. So they're all going to know that you were fooling around. And the law says that if you're fooling around before you get married, you get stoned to death. And so good luck dealing with that aspect of all of this. And then you're going to have this baby in a cave, no support. And then later he's going to get murdered by the state. What?
But then he's raised. When
you're going
we're
through
on the
it,
other side of it. Yeah, we're on the other side of it. So
when you're going through it, I think it's a lot harder to believe because you don't have any evidence.
I'm sure. But they did, thankfully.
Mm-hmm.
But it could have been an earthquake that moved the stone.
Yeah.
So you have to
Believe.
You have to believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. It goes into that area that's called faith.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. All right. So I want to transition away from, the specific stories and and talking about, what are these things and who are they and what do they look like and all these kinds of things, and think of just generally speaking about the functions of an angel, both biblically and kind of culturally, as in the some of the assumptions that we hold. So clearly throughout the Bible, an angel is the link between God and humans, the kind of serving as the mediator or intermediary or messenger, kind of taking the messages back and forth or what have you. We have evidence in the Bible that that angels are there to serve and protect humans. For example, in Matthew chapter 4, Jesus has just finished his temptation in the wilderness, and it says, "Then the devil left him, and suddenly angels came and waited on him." So we've got this kind of servant to companion for humans when they're in need, and so that's probably where our sense of the guardian angel comes from stories like that. But then we also have the warrior aspect of the angel, that they're battling on behalf of God and God's people. In Matthew 26, Jesus says, "Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father and he will at once send me more than 12 legions of angels?" And so the idea that that God has an army, just like any powerful king has an army to defeat his enemies. Because it's now into the holiday season and people are getting out their elf on the shelf thing. I thought about this when I was looking at some of these other possibilities. Hebrews chapter 13 verse 2 says, "Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that some have entertained angels without knowing it." So kind of the keeping an eye on us for God to make sure that we're being good, a la the elf on the shelf, making sure that you're not being naughty so that Santa will bring you your presents. That the angels are kind of out in disguise in the world, and we're supposed to take that as an encouragement / threat, depending on how you want to read it, that you ought to be behaving yourself all the time because you never know who it is that you're interacting with, kind of thing. So those are some possibilities in terms of functions of angels that have been understood over the course of time. I made this list. I just kind of went through my concordance, and I didn't write down every single time that the word angel appears, but these are some of the major stories that angels appear in throughout the Bible. We read about Hagar in the wilderness and the angel bringing her the message of comfort about her son and her future. The Sodom and Gomorrah story we read. An angel appears when Abraham goes to sacrifice Isaac to tell him to stop, and provides him with the ram instead. Jacob's ladder is an interesting one because it says that angels are ascending and descending the ladder, and so we have all these images in our culture of the ladder with the winged creatures that are all brightly lit with their halos kind of floating up and down this ladder, but it doesn't say that in the story. It could just be like random people, like I climb up the ladder to go back to heaven, and then I climb down the ladder to go back onto earth to do my job. So it could just be a very practical thing that this is where the access to from heaven to earth is, possibly. An angel appears with the burning bush, the pillar of fire or cloud that leads the Israelites in their escape from Egypt and through the wilderness, is an angel of the Lord. There's the story of Balaam and the donkey, which isn't super popular and well known, but it's clearly one of the kind of fiercer angels. The donkey can see the angel and Balaam can't, and the donkey is afraid of the angel blocking his path and keeps trying to veer off. An angel appears in the story of the call of Gideon, and in the story of the birth of Samson, there's a proclamation to Samson's mother, just like there's a proclamation to Zechariah and to Mary about the birth of someone important. There's an angel that appears in the illegal census story with David, which is interesting because that angel is sent to kill everyone because God is angry with David for having taken this census. And so the angel is sent to kill all the people of Israel until David says, I'm the one that's wrong. Please don't take it out on these innocent people. When Elijah flees from Jezebel and is in the wilderness, he is tended to by angels. When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are in the fiery furnace, they are attended to by an angel that looks like a son of man, which is an interesting connection between angels and our, how we interpret Jesus later. Angels attend to Daniel and shut the lions' mouths in the lion's den. The book of Zechariah has lots of angel imagery in it. Joseph has these dreams, and an angel tells him what he needs to do in order to marry Mary and protect his family. Of course, the birth of Jesus and the angels, not just telling Mary what's going to happen, but also telling the shepherds what has happened. In the Gospel of Luke, an angel comes to sit with Jesus and kind of comfort him with his suffering and his agony over what he's about to face. The angel appears at the resurrection. An angel helps the apostles escape in the book of Acts when they are in prison so that they can return to their preaching. Angels are present in at least two of the stories of the gospel expanding to Gentiles, both the story where Philip converts the Ethiopian eunuch. An angel is the one that encourages him to do that. And then an angel appears to Cornelius, who is another Gentile, in a dream to help to compel his conversion to Christianity. So kind of participating in the expansion of God's good news and God's family into the Gentiles. And then in Revelation, there are lots of angels involved in the judging of the nations, in the images used for the visions that appear in the book of Revelation. So that's kind of, a summary-ish of all the different ways that angels appear in our Bible, but it still doesn't really answer our original question, does it? That, what is an angel? What is this thing? Why is it here?
Katie,
yeah.
Katie, whenever the people in biblical times had dreams, did they always think that was an angel?
I don't know anything about, just kind of generic, all the dreams that are recorded in the Bible, seem to have meaning and are given by God. Not all of them involve angels, or not all of them explicitly say that they are from angels. Like the dreams of Joseph, it says, in the dream, an angel told Joseph, this is what you need to do. Not all of them talk about that. Some of them are just dreams. Okay. And then, they're dreams from God, but they don't contain angels. Okay. So I'm not sure. Like if your average, dreamer believed that their dream was from God all the time, or that, an angel was the reason for your dream anytime you had any kind of dream. Because they, obviously wouldn't have recorded the one where I was drinking a soda and all of a sudden the soda can turned into a frog and I screamed. And, nobody records that, right. That dream.
Frog wasn't an angel, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay. Any other questions or anything before we try to wrap this up a little bit?
That was a good one, though. A lot of those dreams, I think, were interpreted that way.
Yeah. So I found a couple of interesting perspectives on this question, what is an angel, that I think might help us to if not, not answer any of these questions, but at least give us something to kind of lean on as we move forward with thinking about this question. The first one is from my good buddy, St. Augustine. I love him for some things and can't stand him for other things. Augustine says, angel is the name of their office, not of their nature. And so when you're talking about an angel, you're not talking about what something is. You're not talking about a particular category of thing. You're talking about what they do, which I kind of like.
Oh, okay.
It
Yeah.
broadens your options in terms of how you define an angel. An angel, it should be used, Augustine says that the term angel should be used in the same way that we use other types of more abstract nouns, like comforter. He's my comforter. Well, I could be talking about a person, but I could also be talking about a dog, or a blanket, or a pillow, or a stuffed animal, or all kinds of different things are comforters. But it's about the function. It's about the office, the what it does, what its purpose is. And so he thinks that we should refer to angel that way, so that when we say angel, we aren't referring to a particular thing, a particular, being with wings and halos and all those types of things, but to the office, to the function, to what they're doing. I can be an angel today because I fulfilled the office of an angel. I performed the task that an angel performs. And maybe not tomorrow. I thought that was helpful. And then a priest, a Catholic priest named Thomas Rosica. I don't know how to say that. Rosiccia. He's a contemporary priest. He's not an ancient one. But he says, angels are very important because they provide people with an articulation of the conviction that God is intimately involved in human life. And so the idea that, it doesn't matter what an angel is in terms of what it looks like, or, is it a person? Is it a supernatural being? Is it all of these things? Is it God? Is it not God? Is it, something that God sends? Or is it, God pretending to be something else so that it's not really, God doesn't freak us out by appearing as God? Or, we don't necessarily have to keep wrestling and worrying about those things. Because what's important is that angels as a concept, as an office, remind us that God cares about us. God is present in our everyday lives. God is intimately involved in human life. So I kind of like that as
I do too.
I like that too.
That's really good.
As a source of understanding a little bit of what this means. So for today's wrap it up passage, I brought us Psalm chapter 19, verses 11 to 13. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. On their hands they will bear you up so that you will not dash your foot against a stone. You will tread on the lion and the adder, the young lion and the serpent you will trample underfoot. So I don't know, I have a harder time. I'm much more of a skeptic when it comes to kind of the supernatural stuff. I don't know that I believe in the invisible, people in white sheets with halos and wings flitting around me. I think as with a lot of that kind of stuff, I actually prefer to just kind of set that aside, because I think not worrying about that stuff, not focusing on that aspect of it, not making those assumptions, helps me to read the Bible more carefully and come up with different interesting interpretational possibilities, so that I can understand why this story is in the Bible rather than, what's happening here and who is this angel and what are they doing. I think that's kind of beside the point with like with a lot of this stuff that we focus so much of our attention on. What an angel does is remind us that God cares about us. God is interested in what's happening to us. God wants to be in relationship with us. And whether God shares that by inspiring another person who's sitting right next to us to tell us the message that God wants to give us, or whether God, sends some kind of supernatural being that we can or can't see to look at us. I didn't even bring in like that old show Touched by an Angel that I think did a lot more harm to our culture than good on a lot of this stuff. I think all that is just extra fluff, and it's very interesting to sit around and talk about it and try to figure it out and look at different Bible passages to see what evidence we can find. But at the end of the day, I think it's about this. I think it's about that message that God cares about us, God loves us, God wants to be intimately involved in our lives. So that's where I would land us for today.
Yeah, that
Thank
thing
you.
about
This was interesting.
being touched by an angel, it was always saving somebody or something, and that just feeds that idea that God could, if he wanted to, intervene in everything that happens in our life. But I don't think that's what the angels are for. The angels
Yes.
are for sharing the message that he loves us.
Yes.
And that that not that they're some superhuman, not that, yeah, that's it. Those supermen, that come out of the sky and save you at the last minute from falling off the skyscraper.
And that kind of stuff is, I think that kind of stuff is very harmful to us as individuals, psychologically. I think it's harmful to our faith because, if angels are supposed to be guardians, right? Like she said, well, that angel could have done a better job and not have the car hit at all. So what's the big, what's the deal? Like if that angel is there, pay attention. I mean, yeah, great, I didn't get hurt, but my car got totally damaged. So what's the deal there? So I think we have to be really careful when we think about, the ins and outs of this stuff. And that's why, to me, I think that worrying over all those details and thinking about all that kind of stuff just kind of distracts us from the main message of what the Bible is trying to do with angels, which is to tell us that, God is with us and loves us. But that doesn't mean that, everything's going to go great all the time. That doesn't mean that God's going to save us from every hardship, because obviously that's not what it's about.
I agree.
Me too.
All right. So next week we are on to no class next week. Sorry, that's the 9th. 2 weeks from now will be our last class before we take a break for Christmas and into January a little bit. And our question is, why are there 2 nativity stories?
Well, that's a good one.
So we'll go through the 2 nativity stories that appear in Matthew and Luke and talk about their similarities and differences. And then we'll talk about why are they there? Why do we have those 2 stories?
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful couple of weeks.
Okay.
See you.
You too.
See you next time.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.